to Deep Sleep Stories. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. If these stories help you relax or fall asleep, a short review, comment, or sharing the podcast with someone who might benefit is a simple and meaningful way to support the show so that we may continue to offer it for free. Now, take a slow, gentle breath and let's begin tonight's story.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories. Tonight, you'll drift into a gentle world where raindrops dance on rooftops, turning an ordinary evening into something soft, shimmering, and quietly magical. Settle in as you are. Let your shoulders loosen as if a warm blanket has just been laid across them. Let the muscles of your face soften, the space behind your eyes unclench, the jaw rest without effort. Feel the place beneath you offering steady support, not asking anything from you, simply holding you. Nothing needs fixing right now. Nothing needs solving. Thoughts may pass through like distant cars on a far street, noticeable, then gone. You do not have to follow them. Somewhere beyond your room, beyond your walls, beyond whatever weather is outside your window, there is an evening that smells faintly of wet stone and clean air. The kind of evening that brings a hush to trees. The kind of evening that invites lamps to glow a little warmer and makes every home feel like a small harbor. Breathe in again, easy and quiet, and breathe out even more slowly. Let that exhale take its time. Let it stretch like a yawn of the whole body. And now, in your mind, picture a rooftop at twilight. Not sharp or bright, but softened by mist. Picture the first gentle taps of rain, like fingertips testing a drum. Picture the way those taps become a tender rhythm, and the rhythm becomes a lullaby. This is where you will go, slowly and safely, as the story begins to unfold. We're thinking carefully about where to go. We're thinking carefully about where to go next. Street lamps blinked on one by one, their light pooling on the cobblestones like melted honey. Along the quiet streets, rooftops rose in comforting angles. Some were tiled in terracotta, warm-toned even under the dimming sky. Some were slate dark and smooth like river stones. Chimneys stood like gentle sentinels, and gutters traced neat lines as if they were handwriting along the edges of each home. A traveler had come to this town late in the day, arriving without hurry, as though guided by a feeling rather than a map. The traveler's name was Elian, a soft-sounding name that seemed to match the evening. Elian carried little, a worn satchel, a light coat, and a calm curiosity that had never fully left. The town seemed to welcome newcomers in quiet ways. A baker sweeping flour from a doorstep offered a small nod. A cat with silver whiskers watched from a windowsill, blinking as if approving the arrival. A shopkeeper lit a candle behind a glass pane, and the flame's reflection made a small second world glowing inside the window. Elian walked slowly, letting the town introduce itself. There were narrow alleys where ivy climbed old brick. There were courtyard gardens with wet soil and herbs that smelled brighter when the air grew damp. There were small doors painted deep blue and green, and brass handles polished by countless hands. The first raindrops came as a whisper. They touched the rooftops with such delicacy that the sound was almost imagined. A faint tick, then another. Elian paused beneath the eaves of a building, listening. The air cooled, and with it came a freshness that tasted like clean water and distant pine. Rain in this town did not crash down or roar. It arrived as if it had been invited in for tea. Elian found an inn near the river, its windows glowing amber against the gray evening. A carved sign swung gently outside, creaking with the softest complaint. Inside, the air was warm, with the scent of wood smoke and chamomile. The innkeeper spoke in a tone that felt like a blanket, offering a room at the top, just under the roof line. The staircase was narrow and old, its steps slightly bowed from years of use. Elian climbed slowly, feeling the quiet settle deeper with each step. The room at the top was small and peaceful, with a slanted ceiling that made the space feel tucked in and safe. A single window looked out over the town's rooftops. Elian set down the satchel and opened the window just a little. Cool air drifted in, and with it came the fragrance of rain. The world outside was a soft painting, chimney silhouettes, the river's faint sheen, and the rooftops, so many rooftops, waiting patiently for the rain to finish its journey from cloud to tile. Then the raindrops grew more confident. They began tapping in patterns, each rooftop answering in its own voice. Terracotta tiles offered a bright, crisp sound like gentle applause. Slate rooftops responded in deeper tones, rounder and smoother. Metal gutters added a delicate ringing, and the leaves of nearby trees whispered under their own wedding. Elian sat by the window, wrapped in the inn's thick quilt. The quilt smelled faintly of sun and lavender, as though it had been aired on a garden line during a warmer season. A candle flickered on the table, its flame steady but alive, casting slow-moving shadows on the slanted ceiling. The rain's rhythm was not a single, steady beat. It was a dance, a pause here, a cluster there, a soft staccato that became a long sweep. It reminded Elian of music that did not demand attention, only offered comfort. Somewhere below, the innkeeper moved quietly, setting something to simmer, and the sound of a pot lid settling into place blended with the rain like a harmony. Outside, the town softened further. Edges blurred, corners eased. Every surface grew glossy, as if the rain were polishing the world into calmness. Elian watched the rooftops as if they were a stage, and the raindrops the dancers. Each drop landed, spun, and disappeared, vanishing into the roof's warmth or slipping toward the gutters to join the river's slow story. As the evening deepened, something curious began to happen. The raindrops on the rooftops did not merely fall and fade. In the dim light, they seemed to shimmer for a moment longer than they should. Tiny glints appeared where drops gathered, like brief stars caught on tile edges. Elian leaned closer to the window, not with urgency, but with the gentle interest of someone noticing a small wonder. rain was steady now, yet still soft, like a careful hand brushing a tabletop. The rooftops below seemed to respond, their surfaces alive with a kind of quiet delight. On a roof across the street, a cluster of raindrops gathered near a chimney. They trembled as if excited. Then, as though following a secret cue, they slid in a smooth curve along a groove in the tiles. The movement was so graceful, it resembled a tiny ribbon dance performed for no audience at all. Another set of drops hopped lightly down a row of shingles, pausing at each edge before continuing as if stepping from stone to stone across a stream. The drops did not splash wildly. They moved with control, with playfulness, with a gentle intelligence that felt more like imagination than weather. The town's lamps, seen through the rain, made halos of light. Those halos touched the raindrops and made them gleam. For a moment, each drop looked like a bead of glass, a small lantern of its own. Elian's breath slowed. The eyes softened. The mind, so often crowded with traveling thoughts, became spacious. A sound rose beneath the rain's tapping, something like a low hum, almost below hearing. It could have been the river or wind or simply the town itself settling into night. Yet it felt as if the rooftops were singing, each material offering a note, each angle changing the tone. Elian listened. The hum warmed the chest the way a familiar melody can. It did not insist. It did not call loudly. It simply existed, like the steady presence of the earth underfoot. Outside, the raindrops continued their dance. Some glided in tiny arcs. Some gathered, then released, slipping to the gutter in a liquid procession. Some bounced lightly from tile to tile, then disappeared into shadow. In the soft glow of the lamps, the dance seemed endless and soothing. A performance offered by the night itself. Elian remained by the window for a long while, not counting time, not measuring the evening. The candle burned with slow patience. The quilt held warmth in steady layers. The room felt like a small nest, perched beneath the roof, as if the inn had built a gentle cradle near the sky. The traveler's thoughts began to float rather than march. Memories drifted in without sharpness. A sunlit road, a field of wildflowers, a distant city with tall windows. These images came like clouds and moved along, leaving the mind clearer behind them. The rain, meanwhile, seemed to deepen in character. It grew slightly heavier, yet never harsh. Its sound expanded across the town, threading through alleyways and courtyards, bouncing gently off stone walls and garden fences. Each rooftop turned the rain into its own lullaby. Across the way, a rooftop garden lay dark and glossy. Potted herbs bowed under the weight of water, their leaves collecting drops like tiny bowls. A vine clung to a wall, its leaves shining. The rain touched every surface with equal care, as if blessing each brick and tile with quiet attention. Then Elian noticed something else. The raindrops were not alone. A pale mist began to rise from the rooftops, a delicate veil that hovered just above them. It was not thick enough to obscure, only enough to soften the view further, like gauze over a lamp. Within that mist, faint shapes appeared. They were not frightening or sharp. They were gentle and round, like the suggestion of small figures made of rain and air. For a moment, it seemed as though the dance had participants beyond the drops themselves. A shape moved along the ridge of a roof, gliding with ease. It seemed to be made of shimmering moisture, like a small spirit of the weather. It bowed toward the rooftops, and the raindrops responded with a sudden flourish, sliding and twirling as if delighted. Another shape drifted down to the edge of a gutter, then lifted again as though conducting the water's flow. The rain, always following gravity, suddenly looked like it was following choreography, guided by these misty presences. Elian watched without trying to name what was seen. Some wonders did not need labels. They only needed witness. The mist shapes moved slowly, never rushed. They seemed content to drift and glide, to encourage the raindrops in their gentle dance. The entire town became a quiet theater, and the performance was made of sound, shimmer, and softness. The traveler's eyelids grew heavier, not from boredom, but from comfort. The room, the rain, the rooftops, everything invited rest. Downstairs, the inn grew quieter. The innkeeper dimmed lights. A door closed softly. Somewhere a kettle finished its simmering, and then even that sound faded. In the hall outside Elian's room, the air held the scent of warm wood and rain-soaked stone. Elian remained near the window, but no longer leaned forward. The body settled back, supported by the chair and quilt. The breath became deeper, smoother, like a slow tide. The candle flame flickered, then steadied again, as if it too were listening. Outside, the rain continued its gentle work. It traced lines down rooftops, filled tiny gaps in tiles, and gathered in gutters. Water traveled along paths it had traveled many times before, yet tonight it felt newly alive, newly cherished. A rooftop near the river caught more rain than the others, and its surface shone like polished glass. On that roof, the raindrops' dance grew even more graceful, as though the roof itself had become a musical instrument. Drops landed and rang out softly, and the sound carried across the damp air like distant chimes. The mist shapes drifted close to one another, forming slow spirals, then releasing. Their movement was soothing, like the motion of seaweed underwater. They seemed to weave threads of calm through the town's air, wrapping chimneys, ridge lines, and window frames in a blanket of hush. As Elian watched, the mist shape nearest the inn lifted an arm-like curve and drew it gently across the air. Raindrops on the inn's roof responded by sliding in a smooth wave along the shingles overhead. The sound became a soft, rolling patter, like a hand lightly drumming on a table to soothe a child to sleep. The roof above Elian's room felt closer now, not heavy, but protective. Each raindrop that touched it was like a tiny reassurance. The world is here. The night is safe. Rest is allowed. In the distance, the river murmured, its voice low and continuous, Rain added to the river, and the river carried that rain onward. A quiet promise that nothing was wasted, nothing was lost. Everything flowed, everything moved gently forward. Elian's gaze softened further. The rooftops blurred into a tapestry of angles and gleams. The lamp halos became warm circles floating in the mist. The dance continued, but it no longer needed close watching. It could simply be felt, like background music in a cozy room. A quiet gratitude settled over the traveler, the kind that does not demand expression. It was simply present, like warmth in the hands after holding a mug. In the hours that followed, the town drifted deeper into stillness. The rain did not stop, but it slowed slightly, as though it too was becoming sleepy. Its rhythm grew more spaced out, the taps turning into softer, slower patterns. Rooftops responded with gentler echoes. The mist shapes thinned, like a breath exhaled into cool air. Elian moved from the chair to the bed, unhurried. The quilt came along, folded around shoulders, and then laid across the body like a familiar weight. The pillow was cool at first, then warmed where it touched skin. The candle was blown out gently, leaving the room in darkness, softened by the faint light through the window. Even in the dark, the rain was there, a steady presence. The window held a faint glow from the town's lamps, muted by mist and falling water. The room felt tucked beneath the roof like a secret chamber, quiet and secure. Outside, raindrops continued to dance, though now their dance was slower, more like swaying than spinning. Drops landed, paused, and slid in lazy curves. Some gathered at tile edges, then released with a soft plink into gutters. The sound was like a lullaby played on tiny instruments. A rooftop near the inn caught a stray beam of lamplight, and for a moment a small line of drops sparkled like a string of beads. They trembled, then eased down the roof in a slow, glistening line. The movement was soothing, like watching a slow stream through grass. The mist shapes, if they remained, were now barely there, more suggestion than form. Perhaps they had drifted back into the clouds, or perhaps they had simply become part of the rain itself, dissolving into the gentle work of night. Elian's breathing became even slower. The muscles loosened further. The mind, once full of roads and plans, grew quiet and simple. The only story now was the rain, and the rain told it without words. It spoke in taps and murmurs, in soft slides and faint rings, in the quiet sigh of water meeting water. The inn held still, the town held still. The rooftops received the rain with patient calm, and the rain answered with a song meant for sleep. In that small room beneath the slanted ceiling, the traveler drifted as though floating on the sound. The body grew heavier, comfortably heavy. The thoughts grew lighter, drifting away like mist. The world narrowed to warmth, darkness, and the gentle music above. And somewhere beyond the window, raindrops continued their slow dance, each drop landing like a soft kiss on tile, each sound a reassuring whisper. The night deepened. The rhythm softened. the town dreamed. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.